There it goes. It says live, and the seconds are ticking over. So, yay. For those people who will eventually see this on a replay or, are slowly going to trickle in, maybe, hopefully, some people slowly trickle in at least. My name is Daniel Schinhofen. I've been writing Lit RPG. I've been published for 7 years now. It was 7 years at the beginning of this month. Um, Starting all the way back with Last Horizon beta. And I have my next book is coming up as Lux Voice 7 Rail Laid Plans. So 50 some odd books in those 7 years. It's been a thing. It's been a thing. It's quite a wild ride going from the start of Lit RPG taking off across like Facebook, because we have the Lit RPG page here with Dr. Kong having started it back in the day. That was the biggest platform for some of us to uh, to jump in and let people know that hey, we've written similar style books. Well, yes, I am the dirty, filthy harem writer. I do want to preface that so people aren't shocked if they pick up any of my books. It is way more tame than like 90% of the harem out there, though. Maybe I should be dirty, filthy harem light writer. I mean, just to be more realistic about it. It's just I don't shy away from the fact that there's going to be multiple love interests in my books. I've lived with multiple partners for most of my adult life, so it's the whole right what you know. Hey JD, how you doing? But I mean, the newest thing for me coming up is Lux Voice 7. It's going to come out at the end of the month on the 25th. The seventh installment in my Weird West lit RPG or game lit or isekai at the very least. So got to touch almost every tag known to man apparently. Trying to figure out where exactly you fall in the broad spectrum of lit RPG, game lit, isekai, dungeon, so on and so forth can be a little slide scale across multiple slides. Honestly, it's always fun trying to figure out how do you market the book. Is it do you say you're lit RPG? Well, it's not quite crunchy enough for some people, so it's a thing. Oh, thank you. My Alpha World series was the series that really really started me on the okay, maybe I can do something with this. I've been a full-time author now for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. Wow. Yeah, 5 years. A little over 5.5 now, and published for 7. So, I mean, it's been a journey. I'm actually going to be wrapping up yet another series. So for a completed series, I mean, I have Last Horizon with the 2 books in it. I have Alpha World with the 8 books in it. I have Apocalypse Gates with the 8 books in it. I got Dungeon Walkers with the 4 books in it. Binding Words is coming to an end with book 11. I am closing in on writing the end of that, then it's got to go off to editors and stuff. But like early next year, late, maybe right in at the wire at the end of this year, I'll publish that. So that'll be 5 years of just Binding Words being written um, as one of my series. Unlike a lot of other authors who focus on one series, God bless you guys for being able to do that. I bounce between 4 given series at a time. I so like I'm waiting to publish Lux Voice 7. I have almost done writing Binding Words 8 or Binding Words 11. I'm gonna be starting on Alpha World, Jesus, Aether's Revival 8 right after that, and of course Antecedents Legacy is currently my last book published because that came out right at the beginning of September, and I just rotate through the series 1 book at a time, which I mean works out because I publish 6 or 7 books a year, so nobody is waiting overly long for anything, which I think also works out. I know that people who only enjoy one series, that does mean you're waiting about 8 months for the next book of a specific series to come around to you. But honestly, 8 years, 8 years would be way too long, and I have barbecue sauce on my hands, so pardon me. Um, 8 months though is not overly long, I don't believe, especially if you look at traditionally published authors who will go, 2 or 3 years between books. Um, Of course, unlike most authors who are very pace driven, their books have follow the standard beginning, rising action, action, falling action, conclusion. I write slice of life and or I guess in some cases it could be called cozy fantasy fiction nowadays. Some people just don't care for some settings, Nathan. I mean, maybe they hate westerns. It's entirely possible. I do know people who have read Lux Voice, my western, and said, I only gave it a shot because it was you. I really don't care for westerns, and then were very surprised to to have enjoyed it as much as they did. Um, like I said, since I write a slower paced slice of life style, it I think it brings the characters a little more to life. You get more time with them. It's not always frying pan to fire to bigger fire to volcano. Um, some of the pacing you see in other stories. So I have my small niche besides harem in that regard. And the harems have ranged from two women and the main character to in one case probably a bit much of 20 women in the main character. But the story writes what it does. I'm just an after action reporter, as I call it. I just tell you what the story tells me. I don't tell them what they have to do. Hi, Sharon. It was a good meeting you as well, sir. Though if I do remember, one of those meetings might have been slightly inebriated, since most of us hang out at the bar afterwards. The evenings at Dragon Con, where most authors have a few drinks. Yeah, a lot of fun. So if you watching this on the playback later, or you're here, um, if you don't know my books, like I said, I tend to write multiple romance uh, plots, but they're mostly centered around the main character, um, basically going through life. Whether that means they're trying to adapt to a world on a world run by the Fey Queens of Summer and Winter, whether they're a magic god reborn trying to not get snuffed out by people with more power until he comes into his own again, whether that's a man who was sent to a weird Western world by a goddess of luck to try to save the world from being snuffed out by the encroaching darkness. I mean, I have a little bit of everything. At this point, I even have the sci-fi with Antecedent's Legacy, which is a man isekai to an alternate universe where there are mecha and giant bugs. So I understand, Kyle. Unfortunately, if it can't meet the bills of art and editing and me also being able to meet mortgage and stuff, since it is my job, I do have to make the call of when do I cut. So unfortunately for Dungeon Walkers, book 4 is where it became untenable to continue. I would have started taking heavy losses at that point, to continue the series. So I gave it a conclusion. Might not have been what everyone wanted, but it did at least get a conclusion and wasn't left there dangling over the precipice of nothing with people wondering where the series had gone off to. For those of us who are also readers, I know that we've all probably encountered that series that never got finished by an author. It's dissatisfying. At least it has been for me. So I've done my best to never leave a series hanging out on the edge like that again. Aren't all meetings at Dragon Con slightly inebriated? Nah, not all of them, Stuart. I mean, in the evenings when people gather around, because like most of the panels are done and stuff, they do go that way. But if you catch people early enough in the morning, they're more of a hungover meeting instead of an inebriated meeting. JD, if you do make it to Dragon Con, you should enjoy yourself. It is mostly a place I go to interact with the fans who make it, but I also make sure then to use it as the networking for the other authors, the publishers, the narrators, the audio publishers. I mean, there's a huge group of the genre that make it a Dragon Con. If we get another lit RPG under the sea event, I'm sure Geneva is watching this, so you know, um, many of us will want to help push that to to have that fabulous event again. It was a rousing success, if I remember right, and I know that I am looking forward to trying to do that again this coming year at Dragon Con. So if you're going to make a trip to Dragon Con this coming year, would not be terrible. I'm glad you got at least the closure you were looking for out of it, Kyle, because that's what I was looking for. Um, Brian, I understand as a true introvert who'd rather sit in his cave and not talk to people. I mean, things like this are nerve wracking enough for me. Dragon Con is constant, far outside of my comfort zone, but it has been rewarding to meet and interact with people enough that I will continue to do it. Any news on the audio for Aether's Revival 7 Moral Stand? Andy should start recording it on Monday, I believe. With the COVID she came down with and the sicknesses that came after that, and her very, very packed schedule, things kind of got bumped. And then I have a deal with Podium with Anteceden's Legacy that includes her, and they put up the pre-order, and she had to move that up ahead of it so we could make sure to get it to through Podium on time so they actually met their pre-order deadline. So Aethers is going to start being recorded on Monday because Anteceden's Legacy 2 audio just got finished recording Friday, I want to say it was. Possibly on Thursday. Um, but yeah, she'll be starting in on it Monday, say a week and a half of recording time. Then it's got to go to her proofer. Then it comes to me so I can find corrections I want, and then she does corrections, and then it goes to ACX. And then ACX will sit on it between anywhere from a day to 6 months. They've been better about it of late. With the holidays coming up, though, it's always going to get a little tough. I would say expect it probably in December sometime, depending on how crushed ACX gets with audio going through them. So, but yeah, we should have something there for you. If you've never listened to Andrea narrate, uh, she does live stream her narrations on her Discord server. Um, if you've only heard the perfectly immaculate final copy she gives us, I find that listening to her record it live gives you a depth of understanding of the work that goes into making them sound as fabulous as she makes them sound. Um, if you've never listened to her, I think it's worth it to have a fuller appreciation of the work. It's not easy and it's not simple, especially with the hundreds of characters I've given her over my longer series to to make things work out all that well. Let's see. I agree. Andy is fabulously talented. That's why I try to. That's why I've told her she has first right of refusal on every single book I publish. I will ask her to narrate them first, and if she tells me no, then I will try to find another narrator. But I will always ask Andy first. Lit RPG Under the Sea was a blast. We are already discussing more events for the coming year. Oh, thank you, Geneva. I am looking forward to once again, helping back the event. Probably a little more in depth this time, just because I think that the genre deserves a little more recognition out there. Between the event at Dragon Con and this now coming around for yet another year, I think it really helps the genre gel together a bit more. It gives us more of a community feel when you have events that people can go to, see, interact with, um, above and beyond just the Facebook groups and the Discord groups. Um, Honestly, though, I think our genre has a better community around it than a lot of other genre writer reader communities that I've seen. I mean, there's definitely a lot less arguments in our genre between authors than I've seen in, like, say, romance, for instance. So, romances. Poor man, they get cutthroat with each other. Uh, and Andy is a great person, Brian. Like you said, um, she's if you get to meet and interact with her in person, she is she is amazing. She is one of the kindest, most what is the word I'm looking for? Not generous, real people I've ever encountered. She's a sweetheart. She is an absolute sweetheart. John, if you make it, like I said, there's probably going to be events and stuff going on at Dragon Con, but most of us have a tendency to let our schedules be known where you can find us on the various Facebook and Discords out there. So it's very easy to find like a favorite author if you wanted to get something signed by them. So LitRPG has so much sharing of resources and open communication, really progressive and helpful to new authors. It is. I mean, it's grown a lot in the last, I think, 8 years. I think it's been 8, 9 years since Kong started the Facebook page that this is being shown on currently. Um, I mean, from back in those days to now, it's huge in comparison, but I think it still has so much more room for growth between new authors and fans and everything else. When you realize that most people, especially in America, are gamers, have gamed in some form or another. If they're my age or younger, if they were born in the '80s and later, they're gamers, at least in one degree or another. So LitRPG takes something that they've loved, games, and makes it accessible in a different format for them, especially if they don't have 4 hours a night to dump into an MMORPG, for instance. It's easier to listen to an audiobook on a drive, or get an hour in reading on a break or something. But it still lets them touch something that they love themselves in a way, which is gaming. So Lit RPG seems to ascribe to the rising tide raises all ships mentality. I mean, John, you're not wrong. There are those who seem to be a bit more cut and burn about it. Like, well, I'm not going to tell you my secrets because I don't want the competition. I've interacted with some of these people. I think it's the wrong mentality. You're better off raising each other up than you are trying to tear each other down. Otherwise, you end up like before said, more like the romance community. They're probably the most cutthroat community I've come across in an author standpoint. Um, Lit RPG has been the biggest self promoting or promoting each other communities. I myself promote very few other authors, and that's just because I don't get a big chance to read anymore. For me to promote a book, I had to have read it and loved it myself. For me to go out and be like, "Oh, you totally need to go read this book now." And with my reading time being this much, um, about an hour a night is what I try to get myself to at least get something in. Um, it doesn't give me a whole lot of time to read. So I know that I've read some books in the genre and I have promoted them because they're amazing. And when I read a book that I personally don't like for one reason or another, I don't go out and tear it down and tell you how awful it was. I just won't say anything because what I enjoy and what you enjoy might not be the same thing, and it's easier to just let somebody else find something that they enjoy than for me to go out there and be like, nope, this author did it wrong for these reasons. I don't understand that mentality. If it was you don't care for slice of lifestyle, don't read my books. But don't go out and say the author needs to learn how to do action. It's so slow. He's terrible. That's not helpful to anyone. You could just say, hey, this wasn't my cup of tea. At you don't have to go on a spree of criticism. But some people are only happiest tearing others down. As sad as that is in the world. Just yeah. On the topic of gaming, what are you playing and enjoying at the moment? Brian, I still have Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm struggling with because, like my reading, I get very little time with all the writing I try to get done. I think I'm still on Act 2. I started when the game came out. I'm still on Act 2, and I'm not that far into Act 2. Just because I don't get that much time. With Baldur's Gate 3, it's not, for me, it's not as easy to jump in and jump out of it because it's a D&D style game. I want a couple of hours to like go and do some quests and feel good about it. Whereas with some of the other games I play, I can play it for 15 minutes. That concludes the session, and I can go back to doing something else. Technically, I could, like I said, you could do that in Baldur's Gate, but to me, it feels unsatisfying because honestly, that's like just going from point A to point B and killing stuff on the way, and then that's it. So, but that is my current game. I do have a game I play with my girlfriend and Andy. Then we get together. We try to get together once a week and put in a couple of hours on for Baldur's Gate. So that's fun because I'm the one clinical tactician, and then I have two chaos goblins to just run off and do things. Ah, yes. Don't have the mental capacity. Yeah, mobile games. I think the only ones I really play. Like I have Pokemon Go, but that's mostly because it helps keep me walking. It's one of the things like the nearest Pokestop to me is a mile away. So it helps keep me motivated for my daily walk because I'll walk down and back. So I get a couple of miles every day at the very least of walking, which is good exercise, and it helps keep me motivated for that exercise. But outside of that, not a whole lot else for mobile games, honestly. They're either complete time wasters, like the puzzle match games, or they just want all your money, and I play very little of them. What else did I get there? Okay, I did that. Lit RPG community tends to be a bundle of love, but a thorn in every community of roses. Well, I mean, roses have thorns. The problem is whether or not they've been drenched in something that will get you sick if you get cut by it. Um, but overall, our community is one of the most positive places I've ever seen from a writer standpoint. Uh, yeah, I used to gaming and reading used to be my go-to, John. Um, Now, since writing is my job now, as I'm a full-time author, I have a minimum goal of one chapter a day. My chapters tend to only be like 2,000 words, but since I'm an after-action reporter and not a plotter, other people call it pantsing or discovery writing. I call it after-action reporting. I don't get to tell you what happens. I just get to report on what my characters have done. So sometimes those chapters fly by and it only takes me, 2 hours to get a chapter done. Other days it's like 8 because for whatever reason they're just not interested in talking that day. Um, I still get a chapter a day done. I have very rarely failed on that. And other days I get 2 or 3 chapters done just because the chapters are flying off my fingers. But overall, being an after action reporter, when people ask me, well, why did you say this back in book 2? And I'm just like, my characters will tell me or they won't. There are very few things that I set up ahead of time to pay off in later books. If my character goes, oh hey, this is a big moment, I'll make a note of it. Okay, this is a big thing. It's totally going to come back. My character's going to get to this. And then in other instances, it might look like that to a reader, but my character was like, no, I was just, mentioning the fact that's not something I was really interested in myself. So it gets a little confusing with the way I write sometimes. I can't be doing anything terribly wrong though, because I still have people wanting to read my books after 7 years. So yay! I do want to point out though, because it is only what 4 days away, the 25th. The 25th of this month, guys. Lux Voice 7 Rail Laid Plans, the continuation of Doc's story as the voice of luck in my Weird Western, is going to be published. I also have, I think, another panel or two that day. I have a panel on that day, right? Yeah, yeah. I have another guild. I have a panel for Guildify Con on that same day, so I'll probably be talking about it then as well. But if you like westerns, try that. If you like cultivation, I have Aether's Revival. If you like Celtic mythology, I have Binding Words. If you like MMOs, I have Alpha World. If you like Death Game MMOs, I have Apocalypse Gates. I got a lot of different things. The Getting Cozy panel. Thank you, Geneva. Since I write slice of life, and most of them are mostly laid back with just moments of angst and anxiety, um, I like to think that I know something about a little cozy fic. Most of my stories run along those veins. I don't deal with let's defeat the demon lord. I defeat with well, let's just settle down and try to create things, and then the world decides to not let my characters create things. Binding Words, Geneva. It's the Celtic one. Deals with Celtic mythology and the fairy queens. Main character Sean is an oblivious individual. I say that because he is based on my real life friend Sean. Um, he knows this. I asked him ahead of time. He said, "Oh yeah, that'll be fine." And then he read the book and he goes, "Yeah, I'd want to be upset, but no, you really that's me. I know it's me." So I like to think that it was a fairly easy depiction. When you're dealing with a world that's run by the Fey Queens, though, things can be a little more complicated than you hope for, especially with machinations going on in the background. Slice of life in my favorite tempos are clearly atrocious at pacing and love delving into characters and their personalities. And that, Brian, is why I write slice of life. I my my biggest complaint with most books is you never see the characters outside of an emergency. You never get to see Dresden just sit back and have a cup of tea and relax and pet mouse for a while. It doesn't happen. It's always an emergency, which is fine. That's how most books are written. But I always wanted more time with characters, which is the style I write in. I write in slice of life. You get all the time in the world with characters. And then there's also some stuff that goes on with it. Morgan does appear in that story, Brian. The first book is Morgan's bidding. She's the one who offers Sean the deal that kicks him off on his adventure into the queendom. So, how do you keep all the world's character systems separate in your head? John, all the voices are individual in my head. When I go to write, I reread the last book of any given series. So, like, I'll be starting out on Alpha World when I finish Binding Words. I'll go back, Alpha World. Jesus, I keep doing that. Aethers. I'll go back and read the last book of Aethers. So I'll read Moral Stand again before I go into write Aether's 8, because that refreshes me with characters, mentalities, plot points, everything I need to know to re-immerse myself back in those voices going forward into the next book. It's worked for me for the last 5 years, 6 years. It's worked for me for the last 6 years. So I'm going to say that it works for me. I had to go to that system when I was writing Alpha World book 4, and I realized how heavy the story was getting, and I needed a change of pace, which gave us Apocalypse Gates. And I've done that since then, just rotating between series, and mostly my fans are understanding, and then some of my fans want just the next book of any given series, and that's it. And it looks like I have less than a minute left, so I want to thank those of you who've come to listen to me ramble and try to not bore you to death. After this, I am going to go lay down with a cold pack on my head and something cuddly because as an introvert, these things are terrifying, even though I do one once a month on Twitch. Thank you, Geneva. She put up the Amazon store for those people who would like an easy way to find my books. One of these days, I'll remember things like that. I am terrible at self-marketing. Oh, God. Thank you all for coming, guys. I know she's going to kick us off here in a minute, so until next time, I know that there's another panel for Guildify coming up, so jump on that. There'll be good people there, and you should listen to them. That's it. I'll just wait for Geneva to hit the out button now. Bye, guys.